They laughed as they kicked a black girl out of class, because they were absolutely certain no one important would ever stand up for her. In the halls of Northwood Academy, Amara Brooks was mocked, humiliated, and treated like she didn't belong. While teachers looked away, and a privileged bully believed his family's money could erase the truth. But arrogance has a dangerous habit of collapsing in public. Just seconds after Amara was forced into the hallway, the front doors opened and a four-star U.S. general walked straight past the principal, ignored every VIP in the building, and saluted the very girl everyone had just thrown away. Why would one of America's highest-ranking military leaders honor a student the entire school had just disgraced? And what secret was so powerful that it sent the school's golden boy into absolute panic Monday morning at Northwood Academy was supposed to be quiet, polished, and predictable. The advanced chemistry classroom smelled faintly of dry erase markers and disinfectant, with sunlight pouring through the tall windows onto rows of spotless desks. On the whiteboard, Ms. Valerie Kent had already written the day's lesson in neat blue marker chemical equilibrium, reaction rates, and lab safety review. The students were seated before the bell, whispering over phones and notebooks. When the door opened and Amara Brooks stepped inside, she wore a clean white shirt, light blue jeans, and carried a worn backpack over one shoulder. She did not walk like someone looking for permission. She walked like someone who knew she had earned her place. Her transfer file was already on Ms. Kent's desk, thick with honors classes, science awards, and recommendation letters. But before Ms. Kent could introduce her, Logan Pierce leaned back in his chair and let out a low laugh. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in his bright orange varsity jacket with a large black B on the chest. The kind of student everyone knew before he even said a word. Captain of the basketball team. Son of the biggest donor in the school. The boy teachers corrected gently, and students avoided carefully. His eyes moved from Amara's backpack to her face, then to the empty seat near his lab table. "You lost," he said loudly enough for half the room to hear. A few students laughed before they even understood the joke. Amara stopped beside the desk, looked at him calmly, and said, "No, this is advanced chemistry." Logan smirked. Exactly. Advanced. The word hung in the room like an insult dressed up as a sentence. "Ms. Kent cleared her throat, but not strongly enough to stop him. "Logan," she said, almost tiredly. "That's enough." But it was not enough. Because Logan had already decided the room belonged to him, Amara moved toward the empty seat, placed her notebook on the desk, and began taking out her textbook. Logan leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound personal, but still loud enough to entertain the class. "They letting anybody in here now, or did you get some kind of special transfer pass?" Amara's hand paused for half a second, then continued. She opened her book without answering. That calmness irritated him more than anger would have. He wanted a reaction. He wanted the room to watch her break. So he stretched one boot under the table and kicked the leg of her desk. The movement was subtle, almost casual, but hard enough to send her notebook sliding and her chemistry book crashing to the floor. The sound cracked through the classroom. Several students turned. One girl covered her mouth, pretending not to smile. Amara bent down and picked up the book. Logan looked down at her and whispered, "That's probably where you belong anyway." This time, the meaning was too clear to pretend it was just a joke. Amara stood slowly, holding the book against her chest. Her face stayed still, but her eyes sharpened. "Do not touch my desk again," she said. Logan's smile widened. Or what Ms. Kent looked up from her papers. She had heard it. Everyone knew she had heard it. But instead of asking Logan what he had done, she looked at Amara. "Amara, please, lower your voice." The unfairness landed so quickly that the classroom went quiet for a second. Amara had barely spoken above a whisper. Logan, seeing the opening, leaned back and raised both hands, like he was innocent. "See, I told you. She's already starting trouble." The class shifted with that nervous energy that appears when people know the truth, but wait to see who has power. Logan kept going. "Louder now." She threatened me. Ms. Kent, I was just sitting here. And she got aggressive. A few of his friends nodded. Not because they had seen it, but because Logan expected them to. Amara turned toward Ms. Mom. Kent, he kicked my desk. He knocked my book down. Ms. Kent's expression tightened. Not with concern, but with discomfort. She looked at Logan, then at the students, then toward the small security camera mounted in the corner of the classroom. For one brief moment, Amara thought the teacher might do the right thing. Instead, Ms. Kent took a slow breath and said, I'm not going to argue about this in front of the class. Logan's smile returned. Amara did not move. Then ask the class, she said. Ask anyone who saw it. The room froze. Eyes dropped to desks. One student suddenly became fascinated with his pencil. Another pretended to check her calculator. Nobody wanted Logan Pierce as an enemy. Miss Kent mistook their fear for silence. Or maybe she chose to. Amara, she said, her voice colder now. I need you to step outside until we can restore order. The words hit harder than Logan's insult. Restore order. As if Amara was the disorder. As if being targeted, mocked, and pushed into defending herself made her the problem. Logan gave a quiet laugh, the kind meant only for her to hear. Told you, he muttered. Amara looked at him, then at Ms. Kent. She did not cry. She did not shout. She closed her textbook, slid it into her backpack, and stood with a control that made the whole room feel smaller. So I'm being removed because he lied, she asked. M's. Kent's jaw tightened. You're being asked to step out because your tone is escalating the situation. Amara nodded once, slowly, as if she had just understood something bigger than this single classroom. Then she walked toward the door. Every step was watched. Logan sat back like a king watching someone being escorted out of his court. But just before Amara crossed the doorway, she stopped and turned around. Her voice was calm, clear, and sharp enough to cut through every fake cough and nervous breath in the room. Ms. Kent, she said, are you sending me out because of the truth? Or because you're afraid of him? The classroom went dead silent. Even Logan's smile twitched. Ms. Kent opened her mouth, but no answer came. Amara did not wait for one. She stepped into the hallway and let the door close behind her. For a few seconds, nobody inside the classroom moved. Then, through the tall windows facing the front lawn, a black military vehicle rolled through the school gate and stopped near the main entrance. No one in that room understood it yet. But the girl they had just forced out was not ordinary, and the man stepping out of that vehicle was about to turn Logan's little joke into the first nightmare of his life. The hallway outside the advanced chemistry classroom felt strangely quieter than the room Amara Brooks had just left behind. Students walking between classes slowed their pace, sensing that something had happened, while whispers drifted through the corridor faster than the morning bell ever could. Amara stood near the row of lockers with her backpack resting against one shoulder, her chemistry textbook pressed lightly against her chest. She did not pace. She did not argue through the classroom window. She simply stood there, taking one slow breath after another as though refusing to let someone else's cruelty decide who she would become. Behind the closed classroom door, Ms. Valerie Kent attempted to resume the lesson, but her voice sounded uncertain, repeatedly interrupted by students glancing toward the hallway. Logan Pierce, however, had no interest in chemistry anymore. Making Amara leave the classroom had not satisfied him. He wanted everyone in the building to remember this morning. And more importantly, he wanted Amara to lose control. Smirking confidently, he stood up without asking permission and walked toward the door. I'll talk to her, he casually told Ms. Kent before slipping into the hallway. The teacher hesitated for only a second but said nothing. She knew Logan had ignored classroom rules countless times before, yet she never truly stopped him. That silent permission was all he needed. Logan stopped only inches away from Amara, invading her personal space with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. He folded his arms across his orange varsity jacket and looked down at her with a smug smile. "You know," he said quietly, making sure only nearby students could hear. "People like you should really learn where they belong." Amara lifted her eyes to meet his without stepping backward. "Move," she answered calmly. Logan laughed. "Still acting tough. That's cute. You really thought you could walk into Northwood Academy and sit next to students who actually earned their place." Several students had already gathered nearby, pretending to organize books while secretly watching the confrontation. None of them interrupted. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked entertained. Among them stood Tessa Monroe, a popular junior who spent almost as much time recording videos as she did paying attention in class. The moment she realized Logan was confronting the new girl again, she quietly pulled out her phone. Instead of recording the entire encounter, she waited until Logan finished speaking. Only then did she press the record button, carefully framing the shot so it showed Amara standing silently in the hallway, while Logan remained mostly outside the camera's view. To anyone watching later, it would appear that Amara had simply been removed from class for causing trouble. Logan noticed the phone immediately and gave Tessa the smallest approving nod. It was all planned without a single word being spoken. "What happened?" Tessa asked loudly enough for her microphone to capture. Logan shrugged dramatically. "Nothing. She got kicked out because she couldn't control herself." Amara looked briefly toward the phone, understanding exactly what was happening. She knew the camera had started too late. She knew the insults, the kicked desk, and the lies inside the classroom would never appear in that recording. Still, she refused to defend herself for the audience. Tessa was creating. She simply adjusted the strap of her backpack and remained silent. That silence irritated Logan far more than any argument could have. He leaned even closer, lowering his voice again. "Come on," he whispered. "Say something. Scream at me. Push me. Give everyone a reason to believe you're exactly what they think you are." Amara didn't move. She stared past him toward the large glass entrance at the far end of the building. Logan mistook her calmness for fear and smiled wider. "That's what I thought." Tessa ended the recording less than 30 seconds later and immediately uploaded it to the school's private social media group. The caption read, "New girl got kicked out for acting crazy." Within moments, phones around the hallway began vibrating. Students opened the clip before the first comments even appeared. "She lasted one class. Guess she couldn't handle advanced chemistry. Northwood really needs better transfer students. Told you she was trouble." Every new notification made the lie grow stronger. The truth had lasted less than 5 minutes. The edited version was already becoming reality. One freshman quietly glanced between Amara and the comments on his phone. "That's not what happened," he muttered under his breath. His friend immediately nudged his shoulder. "Forget it," she whispered. "Don't get involved." Fear spread faster than honesty ever could. Logan watched students scrolling through the comments with obvious satisfaction. This was exactly how he controlled people, not just by humiliating them in person, but by making sure the entire school repeated his version of the story before anyone else had the chance to speak. He turned back toward Amara. "Look around," he said softly. "Nobody's on your side." Amara finally looked at him again. But instead of anger, there was only quiet disappointment in her eyes. Without saying a word, she slowly raised her left wrist and checked the time on her watch. Logan frowned. That wasn't the reaction he wanted. "Did you hear me?" he snapped. Amara lowered her wrist. "I heard you." "Then answer me." She shook her head once. "No." Logan's confidence flickered for the first time. Most students he bullied either cried, argued, or begged someone to believe them. Amara did none of those things. She wasn't defeated. She was waiting. She glanced once more at her watch, almost as if she had been told someone would arrive at a specific minute. Logan noticed it too. "Waiting for your parents," he mocked. "You think someone's coming to save you?" Amara's expression never changed. "I'm waiting," she said quietly, "for the truth to arrive." The sentence lingered in Logan's mind longer than he expected. Before he could respond, the automatic glass doors at the front entrance slid open with a soft mechanical sound. Conversations throughout the lobby gradually faded as a tall man in a perfectly pressed military dress uniform stepped inside. 4 silver stars gleamed on each shoulder beneath the morning sunlight pouring through the entrance. Every step he took carried the unmistakable confidence of a man accustomed to command. Students instinctively moved aside without understanding why. Logan glanced toward the entrance, barely interested at first. Probably some guest speaker. He muttered, but within seconds, whispers spread through the hallway as teachers straightened their posture and office staff hurried toward the lobby. Something about the man's presence demanded attention before he had spoken a single word. Logan still believed the distinguished officer had come to meet the principal or attend a ceremony. What he didn't realize was that the 4-star general hadn't entered Northwood Academy looking for the administration at all. His eyes had already begun searching the hallway for one specific student. The moment the 4-star general stepped into Northwood Academy, the entire front lobby changed. Conversations thinned into whispers. Students who had been laughing at their phones slowly lowered them. Even the security guard at the reception desk straightened his back without realizing it. The man wore a dark military dress uniform pressed so sharply it seemed untouched by the morning air. 4 silver stars shone on his shoulders, catching the sunlight from the glass entrance. His face was calm, but not soft. His eyes moved across the lobby with the precision of someone trained to notice everything in a room before anyone else noticed him. Behind him, 2 school security officers hesitated, unsure whether they should ask him to sign in or simply step aside. They chose the second option. Principal Marjorie Lane hurried out from the administrative office in a fitted navy suit, of her smile wide but nervous. She had expected an important guest that morning for the school's leadership recognition event. But she had not expected him to arrive with this kind of presence. "General Brooks," she said, extending both hands, "welcome to Northwood Academy. We are honored to have you here." General Adrian Brooks gave her a brief "Politenod," but he did not take more than a second to acknowledge the greeting. His gaze had already moved beyond her, down the long hallway toward the science wing. "Where is Amara Brooks?" he asked. Principal Lane blinked. The question landed too quickly, too directly. She had prepared a speech about student excellence, school values, and community leadership. She had not prepared an answer for why the student he asked about was standing alone outside a classroom after being removed from it. "Amara," she repeated, buying time. She should be in advanced chemistry right now. General Brooks did not react loudly. He did not need to. His silence made the principal's smile falter. At that same moment, a few students near the science hallway turned toward the lobby, and one of them whispered, "Isn't that the new girl's last name?" The whisper moved like electricity. Logan Pierce, who had been standing near Amara with his arms folded, looked from the general to Amara, then back again. His smug expression tightened, but only slightly. He still did not understand. "Ms." Ken had now stepped into the hallway behind him, her classroom door half open, her face pale with confusion. She recognized Principal Lane's anxious posture before she understood the situation. Amara, however, remained still beside the lockers. Her eyes met the general's from across the hall. And for the first time that morning, something in her face softened. Not fear, not relief exactly, but recognition. The general saw her, and his expression changed in a way so small that only someone watching closely would catch it. The sharpness stayed, but beneath it came something deeper concern controlled by discipline. Principal Lane moved quickly beside him. "General, perhaps we can begin in the conference room," she said, lowering her voice. "The students are gathering, and I'm sure we can bring Amara in once." "No," General Brooks said. "One word. Calm. Finel." He stepped past her and walked toward the science hallway. The crowd split before him without instruction. Teachers emerged from classroom doors. Students stopped pretending not to watch. Phones came up, but nobody dared speak loudly now. Logan's friends, who had been laughing only minutes earlier, suddenly looked uncertain. Tessa Monroe still held her phone in one hand. the edited video already spreading through the school group chat. But her thumb hovered frozen over the screen. General Brooks continued walking until he reached Amara. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough to see the textbook held against her chest and the tension she had been hiding in her shoulders. He looked briefly toward the closed chemistry classroom, then at the students gathered around, then finally back at Amara. "Cadet Brooks," he said. His voice carried down the hall with unmistakable authority. Logan's smirk vanished completely. Cadet. The word did not fit the story he had created. It did not fit the crazy new girl caption spreading on phones. It did not fit the girl he had tried to shrink in front of everyone. Then General Adrian Brooks did something no one at Northwood Academy expected. He brought his heels together, straightened his posture, raised his right hand, and saluted Amara Brooks in the middle of the hallway. The movement was crisp, formal, and unmistakably respectful. For one breath, the entire school seemed to freeze. The students stopped whispering. "Ms." Kent's mouth parted, but no words came out. Principal Lane stood a few feet behind the general, stunned by the realization that the girl her teacher had just sent out of class was the very student being honored that morning. Logan looked as if the floor had shifted beneath him. Just minutes earlier, he had told Amara she should know where she belonged. Now a four-star general was standing before her, offering the kind of respect Logan had never earned in his life. Amara slowly straightened. She did not smile. She did not perform for the cameras. She simply lifted her chin and returned the salute with quiet dignity. That silence hit harder than any speech could have. General Brooks held the salute for 1 full second longer, then lowered his hand. His eyes moved briefly toward Logan, then Ems, Kent, then Principal Lane. By then, everyone understood that something was terribly wrong. "Cadet Brooks," he said, his voice steady but colder now. "I came here today to present you with an honor." The hallway remained silent. "But it appears this school has taken yours away first." Logan swallowed. "Miss?" Kent looked down at the floor. Principal Lane's face tightened as she realized the morning ceremony had already become something else entirely. One salute had silenced the hallway. But the reason General Brooks had come to Northwood Academy was about to make Logan's confidence collapse completely. Principal Marjorie Lane's office had never felt smaller. The polished wooden desk, the framed awards, the glass shelves filled with photographs of smiling students and wealthy donors, all of it suddenly looked less like evidence of excellence and more like a stage built to protect the people who mattered most to Northwood Academy. Amara sat in the chair closest to the door, her backpack resting by her feet, her hands folded calmly in her lap. General Adrian Brooks stood behind her, not hovering, not interrupting, but present in a way that made every word in the room heavier. Logan Pierce sat across from them with his shoulders stiff and his jaw tight. He had walked into the office thinking the salute in the hallway was an embarrassing surprise. Nothing more. Now he was already planning how to take back control of the story. "Ms." Valerie Kent stood near the bookshelf, visibly uncomfortable, while Tessa Monroe clutched her phone like it was both a weapon and a shield. Principal Lane closed the office door, forcing a professional smile onto her face. "Let's all take a breath," she said. "I'm sure this is a misunderstanding." Logan immediately seized the opening. "It is," he said, his voice suddenly smooth, wounded, almost rehearsed. "I was just trying to participate in class, and she got aggressive." She raised her voice, made everyone uncomfortable, and then started acting like I was attacking her. Amara looked at him without surprise. This version of Logan was not the hallway bully. This was the donor's son, the polished student leader, the boy who knew adults heard him differently. Tessa stepped forward before anyone asked her to. "I have a video," she said, unlocking her phone. Principal Lane took it too quickly, as if evidence had finally arrived to rescue the room from discomfort. The clip played once, then again. It showed Amara standing outside the classroom while Logan spoke just out of frame. It captured none of what happened inside the room. No kicked desk, no fallen textbook, no insults, no racial mockery. Only Amara standing there. Silent. While the caption beneath the reposted video painted her as unstable. Logan leaned back slightly, gaining confidence. See, he said, she was removed from class because she was causing a scene. General Brooks did not reach for the phone. He simply looked at Tessa. When did you start recording? Tessa blinked. When I saw something happening, not before he asked. Her lips parted, then closed. No, the silence that followed was sharper than an accusation. Ems. Kent cleared her throat, desperate to explain herself before the room turned fully against her. General Brooks, I understand how this looks, but I was only trying to restore order. The class was becoming tense, and Amara's tone was escalating the situation. General Brooks finally turned his eyes to her. Her tone, he asked. Not the boy who followed her into the hallway, Ms. Kent swallowed. I didn't see everything. But you heard enough, he said. And still, the student you removed was the one being targeted. Principal Lane raised a hand, trying to regain control. General, with respect, Northwood has procedures. We cannot jump to conclusions based on emotion. General Brooks's expression remained calm, but his voice lowered. Good. Then let's avoid emotion. Let's talk about procedure. When a student reports harassment, is your first step to remove the student being harassed? Principal Lane's smile tightened. We don't know that harassment occurred. Amara spoke for the first time since entering the office. He told me people like me should know where they belong. Logan scoffed instantly. I never said that. You did, Amara said, inside the classroom. Then again in the hallway. Logan leaned forward. Prove it. The word was meant to humiliate her, to remind everyone that power belonged to whoever controlled the evidence. Tessa stared down at her phone. Ems? Kent looked away. Principal Lane tapped the edge of her desk, thinking not about truth, but about consequences. Logan's father, Victor Pierce, had funded the new chemistry lab, the athletics center renovation, and the scholarship gala scheduled for next month. His name was on plaques throughout the building. Everyone in the office knew it, even without saying it aloud. General Brooks knew it too. He looked at Principal Lane and asked, Order for whom? Principal Lane, for the student being bullied, or for the boy whose father paid for the science wing. The question landed like a slap. Ms. Kent's face drained of color. Logan's eyes flashed with anger. Principal Lane straightened in her chair, offended. Not because the question was unfair, but because it was too close to the truth. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Principal Lane chose the path that protected the school's image. Amara, she said carefully, softening her voice in a way that sounded more strategic than kind. You are new here. I understand transitions can be difficult. Sometimes first impressions go wrong. If you apologize for disrupting the class, Logan can also agree to move forward. And we can end this quietly. Logan looked down to hide a smile. Tessa exhaled with relief. Ms. Kent closed her eyes for half a second, as if grateful someone else had made the uncomfortable decision. General Brooks did not speak. He let the insult fully reveal itself. Amara sat very still. Then she slowly lifted her eyes to Principal Lane. You want me to apologize, she said, for being insulted. Principal Lane's face stiffened. I want you to help de-escalate this. Amara nodded once. But there was no surrender in it. If I apologize for being humiliated, she said, her voice steady enough to make every adult in the room uncomfortable. Tomorrow they'll do it to someone else. The office went silent. Logan's smile vanished. Principal Lane's professional mask cracked. General Brooks looked at his daughter with quiet pride. But he still did not rescue her from the moment he allowed her words to stand on their own. Logan pushed back his chair, anger slipping through the careful act. This is ridiculous, he snapped. I'm not getting blamed because she wants attention. His hand went to his phone. I'm calling my dad. Nobody stopped him. Principal Lane looked toward the floor, already knowing what that meant. Amara's refusal had lit the fuse, and now Logan was bringing in the one person he believed could make the entire school bow. 20 minutes later, the atmosphere inside Principal Lane's office changed before Victor Pierce even entered. First came the hurried footsteps outside the door, then the nervous voice of the school secretary, followed by the low, impatient tone of a man used to being obeyed before he finished speaking. Principal Lane stood almost automatically, smoothing the front of her blazer as though preparing for a donor meeting instead of a disciplinary crisis. Logan noticed and straightened in his chair, confidence returning to his face like someone had switched the lights back on. Amara remained seated, still calm, still watching everything. General Adrian Brooks stood beside the window with his hands folded behind his back, saying nothing. When the door opened, Victor Pierce walked in without knocking. He wore a tailored gray suit, polished shoes, and the expression of a man who believed every building he entered already belonged to him. He did not look at Miss Kent first. He did not ask Principal Lane what had happened. His eyes went directly to Amara, then moved over her as if she were a problem to be handled. Not a student who had been humiliated. "So this is what all the panic is about," he said. Logan rose immediately. "Dad, she's trying to ruin me." Victor placed one hand on his son's shoulder, not to comfort him, but to display ownership. "Of course she is," he said softly. Then he turned to Principal Lane. "Marjorie, surely we are not about to destroy the future of one of Northwood's top students over a small misunderstanding." The word small made Amara's fingers tighten slightly around the edge of her chair, but she did not interrupt. Principal Lane gave a cautious nod, trapped between the military officer standing in her office and the donor whose name was mounted on the science wing outside. "Mr. Pierce," she said. "We're still gathering information." Victor let out a humorless laugh. "Information? I funded the chemistry lab where this supposedly happened. I funded the equipment your students use every day. I funded the leadership program. This school likes to brag about at every gala." He took one step closer to the desk. "And now you're telling me my son is being accused because a new transfer student couldn't handle classroom expectations." Kent looked down, visibly uncomfortable, but still silent. Logan leaned into the story. She made the whole class tense. "Ms. Kent saw it." "Miss." Kent flinched when her name was used, but she forced herself to speak. "I only asked Amara to step outside to restore order." Victor nodded as if that settled everything. "There. A teacher made a professional decision. End of story." General Brooks finally turned away from the window. His calmness made the room colder. A professional decision does not become correct simply because it protects your son. Victor's eyes narrowed. He measured the general for the first time, taking in the uniform, the 4 stars, and the silent authority behind them. But Victor Pierce was not used to retreating. "With all due respect, General," he said, though his tone carried none. "This is not a military base. This is a private school. A school my family has supported for years." General Brooks did not raise his voice. "Support is not ownership." Victor smiled thinly. "That sounds noble. But schools need money. General, labs need money. Scholarships need money. New buildings need money. People love principals until the invoices arrive." Principal Lane's face tightened because everyone in the room understood the threat beneath the polished words. If Logan faced consequences, the Pierce family money could disappear. Victor turned back toward her. "I would hate to reconsider the final phase of our laboratory donation over an incident that could be resolved with maturity." Then he looked at Amara again. "Young lady, sometimes the smartest thing you can do is let adults handle things quietly." Amara quietly is how people like him keep doing it. Logan snapped. "You don't know anything about me." "I know what you said," Amara replied. Victor stepped forward. "Careful." That single word carried more intimidation than volume ever could. General Brooks moved half a step closer. Not aggressively, but enough to make Victor stop. The room held its breath. Victor's jaw clenched. "Do you think your rank changes the rules here?" he asked. "Do you think those stars on your shoulders can rewrite what happened in my son's classroom?" General Brooks looked at him steadily. No, he said, but the truth can. The sentence cut through every excuse in the office. Before Victor could respond, the general turned to Principal Lane. Open the classroom camera. In the hallway feed, Principal Lane hesitated. It was brief, but everyone saw it. Logan saw it too. And something in his face flickered. Victor spoke first. Absolutely not. You are not turning this into a spectacle. General Brooks did not look away from the principal. A student was removed from class after reporting harassment. A public video is already circulating. The school has an obligation to preserve evidence. Principal Lane swallowed. We can request a review from security. Now, General Brooks said. One word again. Calm? Final. Ms. Kent shifted nervously as Principal Lane picked up the phone and called the IT office. The silence while they waited was almost worse than shouting. Logan avoided Amara's eyes. Victor paced near the bookshelf, pretending to be angry rather than worried. 5 minutes later, a young IT staff member named Noah appeared at the door with a laptop tucked under one arm. He looked confused by the number of powerful people in the room. Principal Lane forced a tight smile. Noah, pull up the advanced chemistry camera from this morning. Noah opened the laptop on the edge of the desk and typed quickly. The screen loaded the hallway feed first. Then he selected the classroom camera. His brow furrowed. He clicked again. Then again. What is it? Principal Lane asked. Noah's voice came out smaller than he intended. The camera inside the chemistry room lost signal. General Brooks stepped closer. When Noah checked the timestamp, the color drained from his face. For 7 minutes, he said, from 8:14 to 8:21. Amara looked up slowly. That was exactly when Logan had mocked her, kicked her desk, and turned the class against her. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The missing footage was no longer a technical inconvenience. It was the first sign that someone had tried to bury the truth, and for the first time that morning, the person who looked afraid was not Amara. The security room at Northwood Academy was colder than the rest of the building, filled with the low hum of monitors, servers, and old air conditioning. Rows of camera feeds glowed across the wall, the front entrance, the cafeteria, the gym hallway, the library doors, the science wing corridor. Everything looked normal at first. Tout normal. Amara stood near the back of the room with her arms folded loosely, watching the screens without saying a word. General Brooks stood beside her, silent and steady. Principal Lane remained near the doorway, her face tight with controlled anxiety. Victor Pierce had followed them in with visible irritation, still acting as though the entire investigation was an insult to his family. Logan stood beside him, but his confidence from earlier had started to crack. He kept glancing at the monitors, then at Amara, then down at his phone as if waiting for someone to save him. Noah Ellis, the young IT technician, sat at the main console and typed quickly. The system is showing a signal interruption, he said at first, his voice cautious. It could have been a server error. Victor seized the words immediately. There. You heard him. A server error. This happens in schools all the time. General Brooks did not move. Check the login history. Noah hesitated, then looked toward Principal Lane, as if asking permission. Lane opened her mouth to speak, but the general's voice came first. Now, Noah swallowed and opened the administrative log. Lines of data filled the screen timestamps. User IDs, camera channels, access points. At first, the list looked meaningless to everyone except him. Then his fingers slowed. His eyes narrowed. That's strange, he murmured. Victor stepped closer. What's strange? Noah clicked on the entry again. The camera didn't just lose signal. Someone accessed the system manually during the outage. Principal Lane went very still. Logan's hand tightened around his phone. Manually, General Brooks asked. Noah nodded. Yes, sir. Someone used an administrator account to enter the security dashboard at 813 a.m. The feed for advanced chemistry went offline 1 minute later. The room seemed to shrink around the sentence. Amara's eyes stayed on the screen. That was the exact window when Logan had insulted her, kicked her desk, and convinced the class she was the problem. Victor immediately cut in. He's guessing. He's an IT employee, not an investigator. Noah turned slightly, offended but afraid to show it. I'm not guessing. The system records every access. Victor pointed toward the laptop. Systems can glitch. Logs can be wrong. Teenagers can hack things. You have no authority to accuse anyone here. General Brooks finally turned his head toward Victor. No one accused anyone. Yet. The word yet landed harder than a threat. Principal Lane stepped forward quickly. Perhaps we should pause this review and allow our legal team to handle the technical side properly. Her voice was calm, but her hands were not. One thumb pressed anxiously against the other. General Brooks noticed. So did Amara. The data needs to be preserved. He said, export the logs. All of them. Noah looked again toward the principal. Lane's face hardened. Noah, this is internal school property. We need to be careful before copying sensitive information. General Brooks's voice did not rise. A student has alleged harassment. Evidence related to that allegation appears to have been deleted. If the school fails to preserve the records now, that becomes a separate problem. Nobody argued after that. Noah inserted a secure drive and began exporting the logs while the room watched the progress bar crawl across the screen. Logan shifted from one foot to the other. He no longer looked at Amara. He no longer looked bored. Victor, sensing his son's fear, stepped slightly in front of him. This is absurd. He muttered, you're turning a classroom disagreement into a criminal trial. Amara spoke quietly from the back. If it was only a disagreement, why is the video gone? Victor looked at her sharply. But he had no answer fast enough to sound convincing. Noah clicked deeper into the log file. Then froze. His face changed in a way that made Principal Lane's breathing stop. What is it now? She asked. Noah did not answer immediately. He zoomed in on the access location. Then on the device identifier, the administrator account that deleted the camera segment, he paused, clearly wishing someone else had found it. General Brooks stepped closer. Finish the sentence. Noah swallowed. It wasn't accessed from the IT office. Victor frowned. Then, where Noah turned the laptop slightly so everyone could see, it came from the principal's office computer. Silence hit the security room like a door slamming shut. Principal Lane's face drained of color. Ms. Kent was not there, but her earlier excuse seemed to echo in the room anyway. Restore order. Protect the school. End it quietly. Lane recovered just enough to speak. Many staff members can access my office computer. My assistant. Department heads, even maintenance sometimes. With your administrator credentials, General Brooks asked. Lane's mouth closed. Victor immediately stepped in. This proves nothing. It's a security weakness. That's all. A school this size has dozens of people moving around. Logan remained silent, staring at the floor. For the first time all morning, he did not try to perform innocence. Amara watched him carefully. His silence told her more than his lies had. Noah continued searching, almost frantically now, as if the truth had become a live wire in his hands. There may still be something, he said suddenly. Everyone turned back to him. The deleted clip isn't in the main archive anymore. But the system creates temporary backup fragments before overwriting. Principal Lane's eyes widened. Victor stepped forward. Can it be recovered? The question came out too quickly. And not with relief. With fear. Noah checked the backup status. Maybe? But the server overwrites temporary files automatically. General Brooks asked, how long? Noah's fingers moved across the keyboard. He looked at the countdown and went pale again. 30 minutes, he said. Maybe less. The monitors hummed around them. Logan finally looked up, and Amara saw panic flash across his face before he could hide it. The fight was no longer about who sounded more believable in the principal's office. It had become a race against the clock. Somewhere inside Northwood's security system, the truth still existed in broken fragments. waiting either to be recovered or erased forever. The server room was barely large enough for all of them. Cold air blasted from the vents, and the metal racks along the walls blinked with tiny green and blue lights, as if the entire school's hidden memory was breathing around them. Noah Ellis sat at the main terminal, his fingers moving fast over the keyboard while the recovery software scanned the temporary backup folders. A red countdown timer glowed in the corner of the screen. 29 minutes. Then 28. Every second seemed louder than the last. Amara stood behind Noah, close enough to see the screen, but far enough not to distract him. General Brooks remained near the door, blocking the narrow exit without making it look intentional. Principal Lane kept checking her phone, her face pale and tense. "Ms." Kent stood silently beside a server rack, looking like she wanted to disappear into the wall. Victor Pierce paced in a tight line, his expensive shoes clicking against the floor. "This has gone far enough," he said. "You are digging through student footage without proper authorization. This is a privacy violation." Noah's hands paused for half a second. General Brooks answered before the young technician could be intimidated. "This is potential evidence in a harassment complaint and possible destruction of records. Preserve it." Victor turned sharply. "You don't run this school." "No," the general said calmly. "But I know what a cover-up looks like." Noah clicked into the recovery folder. The progress bar crawled forward. 11%. 12. 13. Then it suddenly froze. A warning box appeared on the screen. Noah leaned closer. "There's another lock." Principal Lane swallowed. "What kind of lock? A password layer?" Noah said, "Someone didn't just delete the file. They tried to restrict access to the backup fragment." The room went colder. Logan stood behind his father, pretending to look bored, but his thumb was moving quickly across his phone screen. Amara noticed it immediately. She saw the name at the top before he tilted the phone away. "Tessa." Logan typed with his body turned slightly toward the wall. His face was tight now. Not smug. Afraid. Amara said nothing at first. She let him finish. Noah tried one system bypass, then another. "If I can't get through this lock soon," he said, "the fragment may overwrite itself before recovery finishes." Victor stepped closer to the desk, then stopped. "You are clearly forcing access into protected files." General Brooks's voice cut through the room. "Noah, continue." Victor snapped. "This is harassment against my son." Amara finally spoke, quiet but sharp. "Then why is your son texting the girl who filmed me?" Every head turned toward Logan. His thumb froze over the screen. What he said too quickly. Amara looked directly at him. "You just messaged Tessa." Logan gave a harsh laugh. "You're making things up now." Victor moved in front of him. "My son can text whoever he wants. That proves nothing." General Brooks looked at Logan, not Victor. "Show the phone." Logan's face tightened. "No, you can't make me." Principal Lane stepped in, desperate to lower the temperature. "Let's not turn this into another accusation." But the damage had already been done. Logan shoved the phone into his pocket, and that single movement looked guiltier than any confession. The countdown dropped under 23 minutes. Noah kept working, sweat forming at his temple despite the cold room. Then, in the middle of the silence, Logan's phone rang with a sharp notification sound. He flinched. Everyone heard it. The screen lit up through the thin fabric of his pocket. General Brooks did not move. Amara did not blink. Logan slowly pulled the phone out, trying to turn it face down. But the message was already visible. Tessa's name glowed at the top, followed by one sentence. "I deleted it. Nobody will know." The server room went silent. Victor's mouth opened, but no polished excuse came out fast enough. Principal Lane stared at the phone as if it had just exposed the entire room. Logan had tried to bury the truth and had only trapped himself deeper. But what Tessa deleted was not the only evidence still alive inside Northwood Academy. The hallway outside the science wing was crowded now, but nobody was laughing anymore. The message on Logan's phone had changed the air around him. Students whispered in tight circles. Teachers pretended not to stare. And Principal Lane kept trying to move everyone into a small conference room before the situation spread beyond her control. Amara walked beside General Brooks without saying much. She could feel people watching her differently now, not with respect yet, but with doubt about the story they had believed minutes earlier. Logan followed behind his father, jaw clenched, eyes sharp with anger. Victor Pierce kept one hand on his son's shoulder, guiding him forward like the problem was not Logan's behavior, but the fact that everyone had started noticing it. Just as they reached the conference room door, a soft voice came from near the lockers. I saw what happened. Everyone turned. A girl stood half hidden beside the classroom next door, clutching her books so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. She was small, quiet-looking, with dark blonde hair pulled into a loose ponytail and a face filled with fear. Principal Lane frowned. Jade, the girl swallowed. I saw him kick her desk. I heard what he said. Logan let out a cold laugh. Of course you did. Jade Miller flinched at his voice, and Amara noticed it immediately. That was not the reaction of someone annoyed by Logan. That was the reaction of someone who remembered him. They moved into the small conference room, but the room did nothing to calm the tension. Jade stood near the wall, still holding her books like armor. General Brooks kept his voice low. Tell us what you saw. Jade looked at Amara first, then at Logan. I was at the door of the biology room, waiting for Mr. Hayes. The chemistry door was open. Logan said she didn't belong in advanced chemistry. Then he kicked her desk and made her book fall. Logan shook his head. She's lying. Victor leaned forward with a practiced smile that was somehow more insulting than shouting. Miss Miller, isn't it true? You had disciplinary issues last year. Jade's face went red. Principal Lane looked down at the table. Logan smiled again, recovering. Yeah, he said. She got written up for causing drama. Nobody believed her then either. The words hit Jade hard. But this time she did not retreat. She slowly raised her head. I got written up because of you. The room went still. Logan's smile faded. Jade's voice shook. But she kept going. Last year, Logan told people my family was broke and that I was stealing from lockers. When I reported him, he said I was making it up because I wanted attention. Then somehow I became the problem. Principal Lane's face tightened. Yada. That matter was resolved. Jade turned toward her. No. It was buried. Then she looked at Miss Kent, who had just stepped into the doorway and frozen. And Ms. Kent signed the report saying, I disrupted class, even though there was no proof. Ms. Kent's face collapsed in slow motion. For months, she had probably told herself it was paperwork. Procedura, a small compromise to avoid a bigger fight. Now that compromise stood in front of her as a frightened girl who had carried the weight alone for a year. Amara looked from Jade to Logan and understood the truth all at once. This was not a single cruel morning. This was a pattern. Logan did not just insult people. He created a version of events where his victims became unstable, aggressive, or dishonest. And adults helped him make that version official. Victor's expression hardened. This is revenge, he said. That's all this is. A bitter student trying to attach herself to a new scandal. Jade's hands trembled, but she reached into her backpack. No, she said. This is what I should have shown a year ago. She placed a small USB drive on the conference table. It looked tiny under the fluorescent lights, almost harmless. But the way Logan stared at it told everyone it was not harmless at all. Jade looked at Amara, then at General Brooks. I kept it for a year, she said. Today, I'm not staying silent. And with that small USB, the door opened to secrets Northwood Academy had tried to bury far too long. The disciplinary boardroom at Northwood Academy had been prepared for routine meetings, not for the collapse of a carefully protected reputation. Around the long oak table sat Principal Marjorie Lane, Ms. Kent, several members of the school board, General Adrian Brooks, Amara Brooks, Yada Miller, Noah Ellis, Victor Pierce, and Logan Pierce. The small USB drive lay in the center of the table, drawing more attention than anyone in the room. Noah inserted it into his laptop, and one folder after another appeared on the screen. Inside were audio recordings, screenshots of text messages, and photographs collected over the past year. One recording captured Logan laughing while mocking a student whose parents worked 2 jobs just to pay tuition. Another revealed him using racial slurs toward a black athlete after practice. Several screenshots showed Logan threatening classmates, telling them to take the blame or risk becoming the next target. There were messages ordering students to lie to teachers, making fun of families who struggled financially, and warning witnesses to keep their mouths shut. As each file appeared, the room grew quieter. Amara realized Jade had not simply been protecting herself. She had been preserving evidence because no one had believed her before. Victor Pierce refused to let the silence become acceptance. Anyone can fabricate screenshots, he said sharply. Audio can be edited. This entire folder could have been created yesterday. Several board members exchanged uncertain glances, but Noah immediately opened the file properties. Actually, it couldn't, he replied. Every file contains metadata showing when it was created and last modified. These recordings span almost 11 months. The timestamps match multiple devices and different operating system versions. They weren't produced in one sitting. He projected the metadata onto the conference room screen, displaying creation dates that stretched back nearly a year. One board member leaned forward, studying the evidence carefully before looking toward Victor. These records appear consistent. Victor's confident expression began to fade. Logan sat perfectly still, avoiding everyone's eyes. Ms. Kent pressed both hands together beneath the table. Unable to hide the guilt on her face, every new document erased another excuse the adults had relied on to avoid confronting the truth. Then Noah opened one final folder, labeled Administration. There's something else, he said quietly. An internal email appeared on the projector. It had been sent months earlier from Principal Lane's official account to several faculty members. The subject line read, Student Complaints. Handle internally. The message instructed teachers to resolve complaints involving Logan Pierce discreetly to avoid unnecessary attention that could damage important community relationships. It specifically warned staff not to escalate repeated reports without clear physical evidence. Even when multiple students came forward, the room fell silent again. But this time, the silence belonged to the adults. Principal Lane stared at the screen, unable to deny her own words. That email was taken out of context. She whispered. No one answered. General Brooks slowly rose from his chair and looked directly at the principal. His voice remained calm, but every word landed with unmistakable weight. You didn't just fail one student, he said. You built an entire system of silence around a bully. No one in the room challenged him. The truth buried for months had finally surfaced, and everyone understood that Northwood Academy could no longer erase this scandal with a quiet apology or another closed-door meeting. By noon, every student at Northwood Academy had been ordered into the auditorium. The room buzzed with whispers, phone screens, and nervous glances toward the stage, where Principal Lane stood behind a microphone with the school board seated behind her. Logan sat near the front beside Victor Pierce, his face pale, but still hardened with pride. Jade sat 2 rows behind Amara, clutching the edge of her seat. General Brooks stood quietly near the side of the stage, refusing to become the center of the moment. This was not his story to tell. Principal Lane tapped the microphone and forced a professional smile. This morning, there was an unfortunate misunderstanding in one of our classrooms. She began. The word misunderstanding spread through the auditorium like gasoline hitting fire. Students began whispering louder. Someone muttered, "That's not what happened." Then Jade stood up, trembling but determined. "Tell the truth," she said. "For once, tell the truth." The auditorium went silent. Lane froze. The board members exchanged tense looks. General Brooks turned slightly toward Amara, but he did not speak for her. Amara understood. Slowly, she rose from her seat and walked onto the stage. She did not cry. She did not beg anyone to believe her. She simply faced the room and said, "I was mocked in class. My desk was kicked. My book was knocked to the floor. When I spoke up, I was removed instead of protected." Her calm voice made the accusation impossible to dismiss. No drama. No exaggeration. Just the truth. Standing in front of everyone. Before Principal Lane could recover control, the side door opened and Noah Ellis rushed in with his laptop. "I got it," he said breathlessly. The recovered camera footage appeared on the auditorium screen. There was Logan, clear as day, mocking Amara, kicking her desk, sending her book crashing down, then twisting the story until Ms. Kent ordered Amara out. No one spoke. Logan lowered his head. Victor's face turned stone cold. When the video ended, General Brooks stepped onto the stage, opened a small velvet box, and revealed the honor badge meant for Amara. Then, before the entire school, he stood straight and saluted her a second time. That salute did more than return Amara's dignity. It marked the moment the Pierce family's power over Northwood began to fall apart. After the auditorium went silent, the disciplinary board moved into a closed office and began making decisions Northwood Academy could no longer avoid. Logan Pierce sat beside his father with his jaw locked. But the arrogance that had carried him through the morning was gone. One board member read the decision aloud. Logan was suspended indefinitely, removed from the basketball team, stripped of his Honor Society position, and withdrawn from the Leadership Scholarship Program, pending a full conduct review. Victor Pierce slammed his hand on the table. "If this school wants to treat my son like a criminal, then my family's support ends today." But this time, nobody flinched. The board chair looked directly at him and said the Pierce donations would be frozen during an investigation into conflicts of interest and improper influence. Victor's threat, the weapon he had used for years, finally hit a locked door. Principal Lane sat pale and motionless as her own punishment followed. She was suspended from her position while the board reviewed the deleted camera footage, the internal email, and every past complaint involving Logan. Ms. Kent was ordered to appear before a separate review panel for repeatedly ignoring student reports and removing victims instead of protecting them. When her name was read aloud, she covered her mouth, fighting tears. Then she turned toward Amara. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have listened. I should have protected you." Amara looked at her for a long moment. She did not rush to comfort the teacher. She did not offer forgiveness just to make the room feel better. An apology only matters, Amara said quietly, when it protects the next person. The words left Ms. Kent with no defense. Outside the office, Jade waited near the hallway wall, still holding her books to her chest. When Amara stepped out, Jade moved beside her with a small, shaky smile. "For the first time," she said, "I don't feel afraid of this school anymore." Amara looked down the corridor toward the chemistry classroom, the same room she had been forced out of that morning. Justice had begun, but one thing remained. She had to walk back into that room and prove she never belonged in the hallway. A few days later, Amara Brooks walked back into advanced chemistry. The same classroom, the same whiteboard, the same rows of desks, but the air felt completely different. No one laughed when she entered. No one lifted a phone. No one whispered loud enough for her to hear. Several students looked down at their notebooks, ashamed of how easily they had believed Logan's lie. The desk where her book had been kicked to the floor was still near the center of the room. Amara walked to it without hesitation and set her backpack down. A moment later, Jade Miller entered and quietly took the seat beside her. She did not say anything at first. She did not have to. Her presence said enough. Amara was no longer standing alone. Ms. Kent stood at the front of the classroom, holding the lesson folder with both hands. Her voice trembled slightly when she began. "Before we start," she said, "I need to say something." The room stayed silent. A teacher's job is not only to teach formulas, equation, or lab procedures. A teacher is responsible for fairness. Inside the room, she leads. I failed at that. She looked at Amara. then at Jade, then at the rest of the class. When a student needed protection, I protected comfort instead. That will not happen again. No one moved.